Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first ever bonus episode of Flashback 64. I'm Gooey, joined by my co-host, McKenna.
Hello.
Hello, McKenna. And we are doing a sort of 1996 in review. We've reached the end of the timeline of 1996. We've done our first 4 episodes. We've covered 8 games, I believe. Kind of the first launch window of the Nintendo 64. And we're just taking a moment to do a little wrap-up, which we haven't been going that long, but that's okay. I did a brief 96 recap, but we're just gonna kind of have a little fun and take a look back at some of the stuff we missed. Before we get into that, I kind of want to catch up on, I meant to go over some reviews and ratings and stuff that we've gotten since we launched a few months ago, and shout everyone out. That way we can get them, we'll get up to date, and I encourage people to leave more feedback. Do you want to take turns reading some?
Yeah.
Do you want to do the first one, or should I do the first one? I don't even know.
I'll do the first.
We might have read some of these already, but
yeah, I don't know.
Go ahead.
So this one doesn't have the name, but I know who that is because I know that Zelda cast icon.
Yeah, sorry, I just kind of took screenshots on my phone.
But from the Zelda cast, this podcast is wholesome and whips. Love Spiteri.
Thank you, Andy. Oh, and we should mention too. We have been hosted almost since our inception. We've been hosted now by the ZD, the Spiteri Podcast Network, which is great because it's covering our hosting charges, you know. So we're kind of on I guess we're on a podcast network of sorts that are all Andy, all Andy podcasts except for us. But please go listen to the other shows. There's my show with Andy, Virtual Theater, where we talk about video game movies. There's Omega Metroid, which covers Metroid. It's weekly. They cover all kinds of topics in the Metroid series. And of course, you could say the flagship show, the Zelda cast, with our ZD buddies, Andy and Allison.
Which we've both been on.
Which we've also both been on. So go Google that if you want. All right, I will take the next review that we got. This one's a 5-star review. We're pulling from different places. We got comments, reviews. However you want to send us stuff in is great. But this one's a podcast review, a 5-star review we got that said, from Luke Sky Fandom, and it says, jumped on because Zelda Dungeon, listened and was amazed. Definitely my favorite retro game podcast already. Don't stop now. That's awesome. Thank you.
Glowing review. Thank you.
All right, why don't you get the next one?
This is from Alex is taken apparently.
Alex. Hello, Alex.
Haven't enjoyed a podcast this much in a while. Great work all around. A must listen. Heart symbol thing. You know, the less than 3 thing. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Our next one, is this Judaism?
Is that Judy of
ZD? Is it? I think maybe, but it's not like Judaism. It's Judaism. So anyway, it says, great idea to talk about the games within their historical and cultural context. It immediately brings me back to my life in the 90s and 2000s and my own experiences with this era of gaming. The hosts are really good. You can feel the love. Before we go or on to other reviews, I did want to talk about this, just generally the year of 1996, like the events of that we've kind of covered. So we kind of gave like a catch up on our first episode, and we've kind of gone piece by piece, and we haven't dove like deep onto any particular like thing. Maybe that could be like bonus episodes in the future, but it is just kind of fun and interesting to go and see what was going on. Like I mentioned in a previous episode, I watched all kinds of footage of debates and things like that from the presidential election. I don't know, the 90s and in general are kind of an interesting time. Like, I don't know about you, like I don't really have much like memories, but I think people tend to think about the time with like rose colored glasses almost, even though when actually started looking at things, and obviously I remember a lot of things, like there are things that are different then, that are like that we almost took for granted, obviously, but then you see, and there's a lot of the same like horrible things that are happening at the time too. So I think that's worth acknowledging, because we do go hard on like nostalgia and stuff like that, but when you actually look at the time and some of the things that are going on, it's kind of an interesting time. But a lot of it is before we fully like were comprehending what was going on in the world.
Yeah, I actually feel like the 90s is sort of a gap in my history knowledge, because I was born in 95, so I don't really remember 95 except for, or 90, the 90s, except for like, I went to preschool. I started preschool in 99, and then I feel like when I took history in school, it went up like maybe to the 80s, 70s, 80s, and then it talks like a little bit about the early 2000s, mostly because of 9/11 and that, like that was in the the history books that I had, but I don't remember a lot of like specific 90s stuff.
Yeah, I I don't really remember learning much from the time, but it was still pretty new, and and then when we were learning about like 9/11 and stuff, it was like very contemporary when I was in school. I was in middle school or whatever, so like, but I don't know, it's an interesting time period to think about. Like it's sort of like it's before that came along, 9/11 came along, and kind of reshaped a lot of people's view of the world and everything. But it's also a weird time, because it's sort of like the end of debate on like how our society is set up. Like it sort of felt like things are settled, you know what I mean? Like between the two, like not culturally, but more I guess I think about like economically and stuff like that. The year in particular, when I was going back through the elections and stuff like that, you had in 1994 was the Republican Revolution, which is when they finally garnered a majority in like Congress and stuff like that. And it's sort of the end of like any last shred, or like that probably actually happened decades earlier, but it's sort of the end of like any idea of like the New Deal era of like the Democratic Party and stuff like that. So it's sort of like there's minor differences, I feel like. This is just my take. Minor differences about how like economically the country would be structured, But it's the Republican Revolution and them sort of going for the southern states, I guess sets up the next era of our political reality, which becomes like even more insane conservative backlash than there already was, which was already a thing at the time too. Like I said, I don't want to paint it as a thing like this wasn't happening at the time, but we're about to, I think by the end of this podcast, we'll start to see that go into overdrive. So I don't know, it's interesting to take a look at. But anything else from 1996 that stood out to you? For me always like, you see I have all the president's poster up here. It's just something I'm very fascinated by, of like the arc of the country's trajectory, and I always think about it through that lens, even though that's not the only important thing that's going on. But I just love that stuff. What about it for you? You were watching over that video that kind of recapped things.
Yeah, it was kind of more in the background, but I think like the one thing that stuck out to me that we hadn't discussed, I don't think, is that was the year Steve Irwin's show, his first show,
okay. Yeah, that's
premiered.
cool.
And I was like, wow, that was 96. And then, of course, it talks about, like, I guess it was 2006 that he died. And that was probably one of the, like, earliest, like, deaths of a famous person that I remember I, like, being like, oh, that's sad.
Okay, so, I mean, other than thinking about his death, which comes much later,
Yeah.
there's at least some wholesome stuff, because I don't know why I gravitate towards, like, what were the horrible things that were happening in, especially because people think of it as such a...
My sister was born in 96.
Oh, that's
I
that's
lost
a great
my
thing.
status as youngest child after 18 months.
I also pulled up. I went back and pulled up YouTube comments we got on various episodes. So we do put these up on YouTube if people want to go and check it out there. We've got one here from former guest / my brother, Golly Rogers, and this was on our Killer Instinct episode. And he said, "I remember playing Killer Instinct on Game Boy and loving Saberwolf. Also played Gold on the Rare Replay Collection. Great episode." Like I mentioned, we had that Game Boy Killer Instinct game, which is pretty tight. But that the Rare Replay actually is kind of a cool thing. We'll have to get that on something. I think it's only on I think that's only on Xbox, but it's a nice collection of all the, well, most of the classic Rare games. I think it's pretty complete, though. I think due to licensing, is there a couple? Well, obviously Donkey Kong I don't think is on there, but we'll have to go through. We're obviously going to see a ton more Rare games in this podcast, and I'm really excited about that. But yeah, that collection is actually really cool because it's got some of their much older things. So the next one we have, I'll let you read it, but it's actually from someone that I've kind of come to know online, Alex Duquette. He has a great, actually, a YouTube channel as well. You can go check out. He does, speaking of nostalgia, he does a bunch of, he's got a bunch of great medleys of various network cartoon shows. Like, he'll do them, like, whatever, 10 Cartoon Network songs in X amount of minutes, and it's kind of a medley of different themes from different collections and stuff. And he does a lot of other content, too. He has a podcast and stuff like that. So I would highly recommend checking that out. But if you want to go ahead and read it, I don't want to steal your thunder here.
Absolutely love this podcast so far. It's such a great idea, and I love that you'll be providing other historical context from the time period as well. Big fan of the Dungeon Dive series, and now this too. Keep up the great work, everyone. You've got a big fan right here. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's how I came to originally know him, was he was commenting on my Gooey's Dungeon Dive series, which I do also over on YouTube. If you're into the Legend of Zelda, I would recommend going through and checking those videos out. And you have a YouTube as well.
I do.
And there's something that we got a good cross tie-in promotion here, because your latest video is pretty cool.
I just did sort of well, it's kind of a Let's Play. Well, I normally think of a Let's Play as something that you're doing commentary while you're playing, which is what I do for most of them. But this time I did something a little different, where I just recorded my gameplay, and then I recorded myself talking about Harvest Moon SNES, and I go through the game manual, and I go through the Nintendo Power issue. They have a big guide in, I think it's the March 1997 issue, which is something I do. I don't like go through them on the podcast, but I do look through before and sometimes pick out things to talk about.
Yes. I like going back to firsthand material. I feel like we're halfway between, like similar to what I was saying with the historical stuff, is like we kind of touch on it, but obviously we only have so much time to talk about everything, but we're always going to hit those kind of things, and so we do a little bit of magazine reading / skimming. Sometimes I skim it in a way that I would have at the time probably, but I think it'd be cool. Maybe we could start looking at other magazines from the time too.
Yeah.
We should start looking at that, like was it EGM? What's a big one? But yeah, we're always trying to look at the first-hand sources from the time, and the manuals are always super cool. And this is kind of the last era where I feel like you really got to look at the manual.
I feel like I also look at the Wikipedia pages a lot, but
yeah,
I think one of the really cool things about Wikipedia is that it lists all its sources. So maybe we could go through and look at some of the sources that it lists.
Yeah,
I've probably got some stuff from.
I've done that before, and it'll take you to like a way back of like a website from that literally that year, which is super cool to just see the website in its original glory. But yeah, thank you for that comment. Our next one that we have, our final comment that I wanted to mention, it's from the name here. I think it's from Paul. I don't know his YouTube username, and do you know what that says? It's too small on the screen right now.
Aflac Gadden?
Let us know what this is.
Is it like a mashup of Aflac and Aladdin? That's what it looks like.
I think that's a picture. Is that Arnold Schwarzenegger? I think it is. I can't tell, but good friend of ours said, great episode, love the music trend and some wrestling news also covered during the release. Thank you. And also Paul is pretty regular in our Discord, which I recommend people coming in and getting into, especially because we are trying to do, for now, we're doing Mario Kart Mondays. We're trying to do the last Monday of every month, but it'll eventually, I think once we get to other games, we all just go on Discord, and we've been playing on NSO, and once we get to some other games too that have multiplayer, we'll probably branch out and do some other games. But we're playing Mario Kart. We're playing Mario Kart 8 even, and I want to do some Super Circuit. We're playing some Mario Kart Super Circuit together, which was a lot of fun. So check down. We should probably have a Discord link down in the bottom. So yeah, there's a few other things before we kind of prepared some larger lists, I guess you could say, but there's a couple things that I feel like because I'm trying to, when we do the flashback segments, kind of give like, especially because we're going like by week or month, sometimes we cover like a month or two period of time, like I'm trying to talk about, what's happening each week, and there's some things that I find hard to find good like data to pull from, like for music and stuff. It's easy, like, okay, I can pull the Billboard Hot 100, or like movies, you have the box office by weekend. But one thing that I was kind of struggling with, so I just kind of was like, screw it, was getting like a good like thing that tracks TV ratings. So we haven't talked a lot about TV on the show. I did kind of talk about, I'll probably do this again, like just what were the big shows of the year, every once in a while. But we have watched a little bit of stuff from the time, but we're not. It's also much harder to just go back and watch a bunch of shows. But we've hit up some stuff from the time, like Paul mentioned. Like I've been watching a lot of wrestling. We've watched some Saturday Night Live because they hit out on a lot of topics too.
I've been throwing on Deep Space Nine during the day, just as like background.
Yeah, I wanted to. Oh shoot, we gotta look when that actually is. We've seen all of Deep Space Nine and most of Voyager, which should be going on at the time, but
so that would have been like the later.
Yeah, let me. Hopefully the typing doesn't come up here too much, but there's actually a list of Star Trek by air date. So I'm just curious as to what we can almost have another show where we're like, what was the Star Trek episode this week? But I even think I threw on a couple that were time appropriate, but I kind of gave up on that.
Yeah, we did watch maybe one or two.
So 96 was season 5 of Deep Space Nine, from around when we started season 3 of Voyager. So, and First Contact obviously came out that year, the movie. So really, that's a really obviously strong era of Deep Space Nine, and Voyager by this point was a lot of fun. But yeah, so we've been watching Star Trek. What else? I mean, we watched some Simpsons, which was fun. Watched a couple episodes of Seinfeld. That comes on TV a lot, just in general, so that's kind of fun to catch. And you've seen some X-Files, but that's not 1996 where we're
That's,
at.
yeah,
but
event. We just started.
we're watching 90s stuff, too, along with our regular viewing. So, but I think I mentioned on, it'll probably come up when the Emmys come up. We can talk about what shows won.
Right.
I did look back, the 96 Emmys, which happened early September, like right before we started the show. I think the shows, the most winning shows were, or maybe nominated, I can't remember, but the top shows were ER, and the Larry Sanders Show, which is a really funny show from the time. Really great show. But then I think in our flashback too, I mentioned you had ER, Seinfeld, and Friends were all big then. So I don't know. That's all rife for like ideas of like other bonus episodes we could do in the future. Like we could talk about any of these shows or specific movies, but yeah, so shows will come up occasionally, but it's kind of harder to slip in there. But the other thing that was kind of a great idea you've pitched, but it's like hard to think about like the week to week, so maybe that almost could
even the year to year
was you're talking about snacks.
Yes.
Popular.
I really wanted to like go out and buy some snacks to have
Nostalgic
while we were gaming.
snacks. Yeah. We're always
I tried to do
snacking.
some research on this, and it's like mostly just nostalgic 90s snacks, not even things that were released in 90s necessarily. The one thing I did find was like a list of like the most popular snacks the year you were born kind of thing, that goes from like 1940 up to close to present day.
Okay.
What
was 1996?
1996 is the Triple Power Push Pop.
Push Pops.
So Push Pop with 3 different sticks
Let's
of different flavors, which was discontinued. So I don't know if the regular Push Pop.
We can get some Push Pops though.
We can get 3 different flavor Push Pops.
I have
see how that works.
Okay, can we talk about Push Pop memories?
You have Push Pop memories. Yeah.
Well, we didn't really get them a lot in my home.
I feel like none of these snacks I got as a kid, because my mom was not into getting like the unhealthy snacks. Those were like a rare treat.
Okay, cool.
I feel like the most common snack we had was like Chips Ahoy or Oreo, and then we'd make like microwave s'mores with chocolate chips and mini marshmallows and graham crackers.
I can start. I have a specific Push Pop memory. I can start we can start painting a picture. I want to start assembling like organizing my memories into like specific categories, because there's a couple games we'll talk about, and especially for like other consoles or games I didn't have, where my specific memories of playing them are at a certain kid / friend's house, or like a family member or something. So do you remember when we were walking in my hometown? In Northwest Illinois, and I showed you like the house my grandparents lived in. I did a lot of gaming there. Right next to it, there's that big house. The big house there are two guys who live there that were they're my grade, my graduating class. We grew up together, and they were twins. Not identical, but they're twins. They actually looked completely different. They don't look like brothers, so it's just kind of fun. But and they were born 2 days before me. Well, but their birthday was 2 days before me. They were like a year younger. Anyway, push pops. They would usually have push pops, I recall, and I did a lot of, and they'll come up probably even in this episode. I remember doing a lot of push pop eating / gaming at their place, which is funny. I have a lot of memories of hanging out with them, but they're like one kids that I never feel like with either of them I was particularly like best pals. But I think because the town is small, you're just hanging out with everyone, you know what I mean? There was like 10 kids so I was hanging out with them a lot, eating push pops and playing games.
Yeah, I definitely had if I had fun snacks, it was at friends' houses. Like, I particularly remember my neighbor having those like juice drinks. I don't think they were real juice, but in like the plastic bottles with the twist.
Yeah, you twist out the top. That got, like, even when I think about them now, I'm like, that doesn't sound very good.
No. I did have I was talking about the they kind of remind me, I think they probably taste similar to the fruit barrels that just had some at the ZD Marathon, because I think it was the social lead Kat bought some, and those were decent, you know. The one of the less sugary beverages we had, other than water. Actually, they don't have that much sugar in them.
Okay.
Surprisingly.
They just look
they
cool.
just yeah.
They do look cool.
They do look cool.
What are some? But there's a couple other snack. Well, we'll get push pops. Not that kind, I guess, but we'll get some. We'll have them. We'll snack on them for our next game. But
so
what are the other snack things?
Some things we got. We got Dunkaroos, which were early. They were released earlier, but I definitely think of those as like a 90s thing, and those I think were discontinued for a while, and now they're back. So we got 3 different varieties. We got the like classic shortbread with vanilla frosting. There's a chocolate cookie with vanilla frosting, I think chocolate chips in it. And then there's like again the like regular vanilla cookie with chocolate frosting. I think I liked just the classic ones the best.
Yeah.
Even though I'm a like chocolate
that's what I'd
head.
say too. Yeah.
I feel like I've like graduated, and now I need a higher level of chocolate than that. Okay. So it's like when I get low level chocolate, I'm like, you know,
you
not
matured.
Satisfying.
You matured. This kid's snack isn't.
It's funny because it's basically like canned frosting, you know. And I used to think like, oh, even though I like homemade frosting, I think I'll always like just canned frosting. Not better than, but I used to just like, you know, grab a can and be like, oh, I'm just gonna eat straight from the can.
That's the biggest discrepancy in our food taste.
Now I'm like, now I've just made so much homemade frosting that I'm like, I really like my homemade frosting, and I don't want the canned frosting.
I'll still eat it up. I definitely like.
I mean, I'd eat it, but
yeah, that's the biggest issue in our.
Make, especially like an American buttercream frosting is so easy to make, and it tastes so much better.
we sometimes struggle with what to eat because I have like a picky food dietary restriction, self-imposed, of being, I guess, vegetarian at this point. And then you're sort of picky just on like you don't really like trash food like I do. So we struggle sometimes because I'll just be like, yeah, whatever, let's get this garbage.
I think that's also like a more recent thing. Like after I graduated college, which was in 2019, was, you know, I had less than a year before the pandemic started, And so I think around that time I started to get really into cooking. I've always been really into baking, like particularly desserts, but started getting into cooking, and now I'm just like accustomed.
Now you're a snob.
Now yeah, I'm a food snob now.
It's like, come on.
No, we can rope this back into the 90s. Well, we got off track here.
Well, no,
I love Little Debbie
Oh, okay.
stuff. That hasn't gone away.
What I was thinking of is actually just like thinking about, because the snacks are nostalgic, right? And so it's like it's similar to the games we talk about. Like we talk about our experience playing them then, if we did play them, or like, which is I think a totally different experience than, say, you were slightly older gamer at the time, like our age now. Like like I can imagine myself if I was born whatever a decade earlier or whatever, being more like I don't know, there's some games where I think about like, some I play and I'm like, how did I ever do this as a child? And then other times I'm like, it's so funny I couldn't do this as a child, because it's like it's like really not that hard, you know what I mean? I think like, I don't know, Shadows of the Empire might be an example. That, not that I really played that one that much, but I'm like, I probably would have struggled. I probably would have not been able to play that at all as a kid. But it's, or like, no, actually, well, I don't want to talk about Mario Kart before we get into it, but Mario Kart 64, it was a little harder on Switch, but there are certain levels where I think about certain aspects of them gave me such like anxiety when it was coming up in the race, that when we were playing, and I guess we were only playing on 50cc, but where I was like, oh, this is like not really that hard, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't know, like the food experience is like that too, you know, where it's like, especially with those nasty drinks, you know, like they're like you know, like I don't know if a Capri Sun really hits the spot anymore. Is that it for snacks? Have we covered?
Well,
okay. Sorry.
What was I gonna say?
Here, let me scroll
just
down.
Just some little things.
Other stuff
I
you
did.
liked. Okay.
Yeah. We had some fruit roll-ups, which I think are still tasty today.
Yeah.
Sure. Still a solid snack. We had some. I don't know if these were out in the 90s, but there's like these Dunkaroo like Lunchables, where they have like three little...
these did not exist. I don't think.
There were Lunchables, but like we didn't...
Lunchables,
we didn't really want to get Lunchables.
Making the pizza. No.
You didn't want to get the Lunchables. I asked you.
Well, it doesn't do anything for me now.
Yeah.
I can remember everything about it and being like, I would hate this now.
But the Dunkaroo like Lunchables are not good.
Yeah. Yeah.
I did not enjoy them.
They're a little disappointing.
So the other thing I had was on Little Debbie. This is specific 1996 stuff. I really wanted to mention Little Debbie because I feel like it's almost a tradition for me if I go out to pick up a game instead of just ordering it online. I usually go to Target and I'll pick up the game and I'll pick up a box of zebra cakes, which were released, I guess they debuted earlier in the 90s, I think.
Zebra cakes?
Yes. They were known as something else, but...
okay.
They're like just vanilla
Little
cakes.
Debbie's like website
to
see what it looked like.
So the website launched in 1996, which I think, 90s, lots of websites are launching. And Little Debbie started selling select products in Canada.
Wow. Shout out to Canada.
We'll talk about cosmic brownies in a few years.
Okay. This has been a good snack update. Maybe we can do another snack-based episode or something sometime. We'll review some.
We can look at
video.
I can go back to that list of snacks
By
the year you
year.
were born, and go to the 97.
Well, we should get some of those soon anyway,
Yeah.
because
A lot of them were discontinued. I think the 97 one has also been discontinued.
Okay. Well, we
We'll
can find
see.
something else close,
Yeah,
just for fun.
approximation. I do want to say, I think after tasting the Dunkaroos, I was like, I could definitely make a better version.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh,
That's
if
a
we
good
ever
idea.
had a
That's
like
not hard.
flashback 64 party, I could make like a Dunkaroo
Yeah.
bar. You could like make different kinds of like shortbread cookies and different kinds of icings.
That'd be cool.
It'd be fun.
So we talked about music, every episode, but we kind of wanted to, in this wrap up, talk about our personal favorites. So not just of what we covered, but we also wanted to kind of take a look, like stuff from before, and then other things that maybe, because that's one thing, is we're talking about what's topping the charts in terms of popularity, but there's obviously a lot of things that don't quite reach the same levels of popularity, that it's hugely influential in different ways, or like important to ourselves or others. So for ourselves personally, we both kind of we made a playlist of 10 songs that I think you could say are our favorite songs of the year. And I guess, I don't know, I don't know if you want to go through and say what you put on, or if you want to talk about favorite songs or albums, but give me your music take from the 90s. What do you think? You can say all your songs if you want. That's fine.
I think when we first started listening to the music, I was like, wow, this is all very like R&B hip hop sounding. A lot of it, not all of it, but a lot of it.
Mm-hmm.
I really felt like that was what was going
like
on,
really popular,
that was like a little before my first musical memories. I think my first musical memories are like boy bands and bubblegum pop, like Britney, Christina, NSYNC, Backstreet Boys.
Mm-hmm.
So like I do remember some of this stuff from then, especially Alanis Morissette, which I chose Head Over Feet to put on my list.
That's a good song.
Because that was the one we listened to the whole album. I think more than
Jagged Little Pill.
More, yeah. And that was the one that like I kept like.
Mm-hmm. I love that album. I remember my aunt had it specifically when I was younger, and it was one that was played. I have fond memories of just driving around listening to that and other ones. I really liked it. And then I actually remember too doing a tour once with one of my old bands where we just had a CD player in the car, and so at one point we stopped at like a flea market and picked up a bunch of CDs, and I think I got that one on there. I got that album, and we listened to that a lot again on the tour. So I have some fond post 90s memories with it. But I also put the "See Right Through You" song from that album on there because I like that she says, "You wine dine 69 me."
You would.
You took me out to wine dine 69 me. I like when she says that. It's funny. But that's cool, and it has I mean, that's one of the most hit heavy albums of all time. There's like a bajillion singles, and they're all massive songs, and that's a pretty incredible album.
Mm-hmm.
What else you got on your list?
So I saw that the Cranberries had an album in '96, and I
was not their
not
one
super
with
familiar.
The big hits, but obviously all their albums are great though, actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like I don't know that many of their songs. I don't know. They might be. I feel like a lot of late 90s to early 2000 songs I know from hearing them at the time, but I don't necessarily like connect them with a certain artist or a certain album or a certain time period even.
Mm-hmm.
But I listened to the Cranberries album and put "When You're Gone" from that on there.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's a good song.
It stuck out to me on the album.
Mm-hmm. Great voice, great songs.
Yeah, love her voice.
Cool. I mean, we'll have the. I mean, if you want to, if there's anything else, you feel free to mention it. We're gonna have.
Yeah, these playlists are on our YouTube channel. Did you say that already?
Yeah, and we'll put them in the description. But we tried to limit it to 10, but it was kind of hard. In fact, there's some that I left off. That I'm like, man, that I didn't like. I wanted to also include things that we didn't talk about, but like, I don't know. It was tough. We both had Sheryl Crow on there.
Mm-hmm.
I love that album. It's on If It Makes You Happy is the song we both picked.
Yep.
But I love that whole record. I used to walk around and listen to that a lot when I would commute to work. Not in the 90s, but just a great album. If I could, if we both, maybe I'll go back and take it off mine because it's on yours, and I will add.
You'll add a different one.
Pony by Genuine was
okay.
one that I wanted to put on there. We talked about how there's we've been talking about previous to recording like soundtrack albums from 1996, and I put the Cardigans' Love Fool on there, which is on the Romeo. It's like the big I feel like, well, I think because of the music video, but I love that song. I love that album too that's on, so I had that on there. That's the only soundtrack one I kept on there, but there are a lot of great soundtrack. Actually, this is my list. I really have to fix it actually, because I was trying to represent me in the 90s, stuff I like now. So there's stuff I didn't put on because I certain ones where I like sort of liked at the time and it kind of faded, but I think one of the most representative soundtracks for me at that time, and it's really messed up, it's not on this list, I'm gonna go change this, is there should be a song from the Space Jam soundtrack on there, because that I had that on a tape and I was playing it all the time, so I would also go back and add that in. But along with, I wanted to mention, so with Pony, that's one of the first songs I remember like just actually really liking as a kid. And another one that I included that was a massive song already in the show was No Diggity by Blackstreet. And I specifically and I think I mentioned this in the episode, but I have a very specific memory of we would always go stay at my grandparents'. They lived in, pretty close to us in the same town. They would watch us sometimes, and I remember staying the night there one night, and they had a little tiny radio in the room, and putting on, I would just listen to whatever came on the top 40 radio or whatever, and it was a lot of like R&B and stuff like that. So those two songs came out. I don't know what year it was too, but there was also that one song that's like next, like it's like you're dancing real close. It's about like getting a boner while dancing in the club, basically. But I have very fond memories of like that, and then I like actually like R&B and country music actually being like some of the first music I liked as like a little tiny kid, because it was like what I was really being exposed to, along with like classic like rock and stuff like that. Any other music you want to talk about?
I think there's two other on my list that I'd like to mention. One is Don't Speak from No Doubt, because that's one I just remember listening to like throughout my whole life. Like that just has like some staying power there. And one I had to pick a soundtrack. This is another movie soundtrack, but it's a Disney one. I think like the 90s were kind of a golden age for Disney. Like a lot of their like I think all my favorite Disney animated movies are from the 90s. So 96, The Hunchback of Notre Dame came out, and I was kind of between. I feel like I think the whole soundtrack is really good, but I didn't put God Help the Outcasts, God Save the Outcasts, God Help the Outcasts.
Oh, okay.
I didn't put that one on there because I only wanted to pick one, but that one's really good. I picked Hellfire because they always give the Disney villains such great songs. And yeah, I wanted to throw in a little Disney soundtrack, especially because that's like probably what I was watching. Maybe not in the 90s, but late 90s to early 2000s, I was probably watching a lot of the animated Disney stuff because I was a baby.
Yeah. I put on I wanted to represent different eras of my taste, and I put on a handful of like punk bands, which I didn't really get into at that time. I got into more in my teenage years, so maybe like 2006 I would say. So maybe I'll take one of these off and slip on a Space Jam song. But I had and some these are actually all the three that I put on there are also the title of the song and the album. So this is great. I can just list them. Less Talk More Rock by Propagandhi, The Descendants, Everything Sucks, and Bikini Kill, Reject All American. Were all when I first was like getting into punk music, stuff I really liked. And then one thing I want to mention, we had this sort of chat. We were over at my my old bandmates Marcus and Delia's house, having a fire last month, chilling out. And the 90s was also a big time, particularly late 90s, for like this particular era of like of emo, which we'll never see come up on the charts. I don't think it's not until the next era that any of them, I think, approach chart topping. But the real good stuff, the real, the cool stuff is from this era. And we'll probably both of them, for I guess actually from being around it so much and playing it in bands, like I'm not actually that smart on it. Like it's like any genre where like I pick up a little bit in some bands I like, and then like I'm not like a expert on any genre of music. But we'll have to, kind of like how I've talked about wrestling with my wrestling friends, Marcus and Delia. Delia is such a encyclopedia of emo knowledge. But I did put in on here Mineral, the song Parking Lot. And Mineral is one of the, like, for me, one of the top like emo bands from that era. Behind like The Promised Ring is my favorite. It's like one of my favorite bands of all time, actually. But Mineral, I think, is such an awesome band. Actually, got to open for them once when they yeah. And I've seen them a couple times, like, because they broke up, got back together. Like a lot of those bands have done now reunions and stuff. But all the Mineral albums I highly recommend anyone checking out. So I like my playlist. I got kind of a good mix. Oh, I also threw in, this is also something that came probably 10 years later, but I put the song Assassination Day by Ghostface Killah from his album Iron Man, which he's not even on the song. It features other members of the Wu-Tang Clan, which I got really into when I was like in high school. So not necessarily in 96 when it was the heyday to be into them, when they're at the height of their powers, was probably this specific era, because they had a genius business strategy of having 9 members and then making 1 million albums with each of them. But anyway, that's, yeah. There's okay. Yes, there's music, a lot of music.
There's music.
Let's also talk about movies. 96 was a banger year for movies. We've been watching a lot of great ones, but what were your favorites? Not of what we just watched, but your 1996 movies.
So the standout movie of the year for me was Independence Day.
Mm-hmm. That's like the biggest movie of the year, I think.
Yeah, I think we did look at that stat. Yeah. I probably watched it for the first time when I was around 10. But I love disaster movies.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, you'll see that a little in my next pick. But yeah, Independence Day, awesome, love it. It kind of, I always kind of think of it in hand with Jurassic Park, probably because of Jeff Goldblum.
Mhm.
And I have like a specific story of, I think I was watching Independence Day, and Will Smith and Jeff Goldblum are like escaping the mothership thing, and a door starts closing, and
Mhm.
it they're not sure if they're gonna make it in time, and Jeff Goldblum starts going, must go faster, must go faster, must go
Yeah.
faster.
Yeah.
And I just sit there like, hold up.
Mhm.
I had just like a deja vu moment.
You're always.
And I just immediately paused the movie, grab the Jurassic Park VHS, fast forward to the scene where
No.
they're driving away from the T-Rex with Jeff Goldblum's got an injured leg, I think, and he's in like the back seat of one of those cool Jeeps, and the T-Rex is starting to catch up, and Jeff Goldblum goes, must go faster. I was like, I
There you
knew
go.
it. He did it.
Yeah, I didn't put it on my list because actually I just knew you were gonna bring it up. So, but it's hard to say it's not one of my favorites from the time, because I think it is just one of the most bombastic, and it's like this era of movies is honestly just my favorite, especially for like big, not even big. I like the medium sized action movies, like, or like thriller, like stuff like that, like that we watched Chain Reaction the other night. Like I love those, and you'll see my favorites that I have also encompass this, but then all the way up to the big, huge blockbusters. Like this is my favorite era, I think, for that, of those type of movies. So it should be on my list, and it would have. And then for just of the time, this was another, like, I loved this as a kid. Like it was both exciting, and it also freaked me out a little bit. And that's a I'll lump that in as a cousin movie. I feel like I watched that one at my cousin's. I have, like, I think the memory of seeing it for the first time would have been at my cousin's. So we'll touch upon cousin games, but that's a cousin movie for me. What else you got?
I got Twister.
Yeah, this is another one I thought when you were like, should I put this on? I was like, please put this on, because I don't want to put it on, but I want it to be on the list. I love this movie.
Again, this is like another disaster movie, but it's also, I got very into tornadoes for a little while, and at one point I kind of wanted to be a storm chaser.
Yeah.
And I still
Nice.
have like a dream. They do like tornado chasing tours.
Really?
Yeah, where you just go, and I think they're like 2 week long tours where you just get in a car and they go chase storms that look like they have the potential for tornado formation. And I was like, that would be so cool to see a tornado in person.
Mm-hmm. I would never. No.
Yeah, it's just, it's a fun.
Well, it has a massive cast of just amazing actors in it. And I'm such a, like I was saying, of this era movies, I'm just such a movie boomer when it comes to this. Like when we were watching Chain Reaction, or I can go back and watch a random scene of this, and it's just people talking. I'm just like, oh, they don't make them like they used to. I'm just seeing that specific faces that I feel like I don't see anymore, like certain look, I might just be like because it's shot on film or something, but I'm just looking at it, I'm like, oh, that's movies right here. Twister is awesome for that. Mm-hmm. You had one more?
Yeah, probably, I'm sure the earliest of these three that I watched, Matilda, which that's a younger age demographic, but just like this whole, I don't know, Mara Wilson is just awesome.
Mm-hmm. Danny DeVito.
Yeah. And Bree, what's her last name?
What's that?
Who plays Danny DeVito's character's wife.
Oh yeah, who is that?
The Cheers.
From Cheers.
Yeah.
Matilda. I don't know.
Yeah, she's in that too. Yeah, I remember reading a story.
Rhea
like
Perlman.
they kind of
Right.
like pseudo adopted Mara Wilson
Oh really?
at the time, because
Okay.
I think, I don't know if her mother died around that time. I don't know if it was during filming or like shortly before.
Mm-hmm.
So they were like kind of pseudo parents to her.
Okay, that's cool.
Plus Miss Honey is awesome.
Mm-hmm. That was
She's
I
great.
definitely saw a couple times as a kid, and it wasn't my favorite, but I liked it a fair amount.
Mm-hmm. I don't know, just any movie where you discover that you got magic powers.
It's a proto Harry
it's cool.
Potter.
Yeah.
Now it's no without the baggage. No, there's
I don't think there's any
is
Matilda baggage.
Is there any backlash towards Matilda? I don't know.
I don't think so.
Okay. So okay, in that vein, I want to mention I'm cheating and I'll be quick, but I made sort of 2 lists and I crammed more than 3 in both of them, but
Gooey gets
well, you could do this
So-
too if you want.
yeah, I do want to mention one thing.
Okay,
Should
go
I do
ahead.
that before?
No, go ahead, yeah.
So Emma with
Oh,
Gwyneth Paltrow
yeah.
came out in 96, and that was kind of like, I feel like the bookend of kind of a mid-90s Jane Austen film adaptation era. There's like a few that come out a few years later, but I think there's 95, you got the Pride and Prejudice miniseries. I think Sense and Sensibility with Emma Thompson, Kate Winslet
Mm-hmm.
came out in 95. Clueless, which is also an Emma adaptation. And I think Persuasion was around there, somewhere in there as well.
There's a lot of like that and a lot of like Shakespeare stuff I remember too in the 90s.
Yeah, I watched a ton of that growing up. I remember watching them a lot, like over
Yeah.
and over again.
So you like the Gwyneth Paltrow Emma? I've never seen it.
I do. I think I liked it a lot more then, before I read the book. I still enjoy
Now
it.
you're a
I
snob.
still enjoy it, but I don't think it portrays Emma, the character, quite as nicely as, like, I think the newer Emma with
Anya
Anya Taylor-Joy, yeah, I think that's a really good adaptation.
Okay.
I
Yeah,
just
haven't
think
seen
the
that.
reward.
We should watch these. I feel like
Yeah, we should.
I always like these. Well, I've seen a fair amount of those adaptations over time, and I always like them. But it's not ever ones I go to. I go to. You see some of these here. Some of the more ridiculous. I don't know, not ridiculous, but I guess movies I've been conditioned to like more. Mm-hmm. Similar to like Matilda. When I was really young, like I liked Matilda and stuff, but I was always conditioned like that's a girl movie,
Right.
But I did want to mention I didn't have. I'm gonna sneak another one in there
Oh,
because I told you about this, but I saw someone share it on Blue Sky, which we're on now, by the way. We're on Blue Sky, so go follow us there if you haven't. But someone in there, I got a lot of people sharing their favorite movies. Someone shared Harriet the Spy, which I had because there was probably a lot of crossover and promotion on Nickelodeon. And I was a big Nickelodeon watcher at the time, and I remember the orange case, and that was one I was into. And I'm curious. We should watch that. I feel like you might be into that because I feel like, yeah, I feel like it wasn't marketed for like young boys, but I got into it. So, okay, my movies. I made 2 lists. I made movies that I literally loved at the time that I can't not mention. I've already talked about them on the show though. I've told my stories about them. There was Space Jam. Well, and we'll talk about basketball in our next episode. So, and Michael Jordan and stuff like that. Space Jam. I've said it all. I think I've already mentioned Mars Attacks.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to say, if I'm getting the groups together, that was one I specifically remember, and when we were down in Texas, my family brought this up. They remember this, but my aunts and uncles, and we brought me and my cousins to see it. And I don't think this is for kids. I was 6 years old. I saw it in theaters. And now I see it, and the aliens are so funny to me. Like, they're hilarious. Mm-hmm. But they're fucking scary. They're really horrifying. They're big, huge brains. So I was really scared of that as a kid.
We both picked an alien movie.
Yes.
An alien invasion movie.
Well, and actually, I don't remember a lot of, like, dreams and stuff I had. But when I was a kid, I did have a lot of nightmares about being, like, in an alien invasion. And they were, like, I imagined myself like the kid, or like Natalie Portman in Mars Attacks, or like the kids, and they all have like kids. Mars Attacks is weirdly, even though it came out at the same time, it's actually a really good, it's like a parody of Independence Day, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Like, but yeah, like I would have nightmares about that happening. Like, it was really scary.
That does remind me. Jurassic Park, I think, was like my first PG-13 movie.
Okay.
And even though I loved watching it, I would have dinosaur nightmares.
Yeah, no, it's pretty
for
freaky.
Like a year. Yeah. It's been a while since I've had one, but I definitely have had dinosaur nightmares as an adult.
And then so I also put on Beavis and Butthead Do America. I liked that a lot as a kid, and I still like it a lot. But that was one that, honestly though, like Independence Day would probably be stronger on there than my. But I want to talk about my actual favorites now. That if I had to like go and watch, and tell you like what are like the absolute favorites, I couldn't. I was hoping that Chain Reaction would get in there because it was made by a director of many movies I love, and I thought it was a great movie, but it would probably not be in my top.
And it's got Keanu.
It's got Keanu and Morgan Freeman. That one
it's got
Chicago
Rachel,
cop that's in all
Rachel
the
Weisz. I think that's how you say her last name.
Yeah.
I love her.
It's a great movie, actually. I would probably put it in my top 10. Like, I thought it was a really good thriller. So, and I still have 4 more movies to name, but then I couldn't decide between Mission Impossible. The first Mission Impossible is an awesome movie, or Star Trek First Contact, which I think is simultaneously like kind of a dumb movie, but it also whips so much ass to me. It's just like, it's almost like, I don't know if I would like I would have totally watched it if it wasn't a Star Trek movie, but like almost the way it whips ass is like in contrast with like what being a good Star Trek thing is. Like, it's kind of silly, but I don't know. I think it's a really satisfying movie. Frakes, the god Frakes directed it. There's not a better TNG movie than First Contact. I don't know if you remember them all, but that's the Borg one, where they got Zefram Cochrane.
Yeah,
Barkley
that's
shows
the
him.
most memorable one to me.
Yeah, Generation's pretty good with Kirk. But,
yeah.
Anyway,
yeah.
So my top ones, though, these are my strong top ones, and this one I only saw like a year ago. But Executive Decision, me and Moss watched it in our run through of Steven Seagal movies, but it's very much unique in that it's like one that's not actually starring him. In fact, he like dies. Like, he's presented like it. What makes it great, actually, there's a couple Seagal movies that like actually exceed what he is capable of, because I feel like there's a cap on like a starring vehicle, but they use him in the way he's used in a lot of movies, but then he dies. But it's a great thriller of like, it's like, I love these kind of movies where it's like there's a terrorist attack on a plane, and like there's a time limit and a bomb, and it's cool. It's basically like Seagal and Kurt Russell are going on this plane that they gotta stop this. Kurt Russell's like a suit, and Seagal's leading a SWAT team that has John Leguizamo, uh, Joe Morton from T2, the one guy, what's his name, Oliver, he's in Flatliners, but anyway, he gets taken out, and so now Kurt Russell, who's not like a tactical guy, has to kind of like, he's put into the situation. It's very like Die Hard, where it's like, oh, he's kind of vulnerable, he's got to lead this team, and they also gotta, they're sneaking around the plane. Someone's got to do the bomb ensemble type thing. Halle Berry's one of the attendants, so she's got to kind of communicate things. It's a very fun. I love those kind of movies. But then I think I can't deny the greatest movie of the year. I think it's one of the greatest movies all time is Fargo, which we actually watched together. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean it's we'll talk about it actually in an upcoming episode, because I believe in '97 it wins a handful of Oscars, but it's one of the best, just one of the best movies in general. What more can you say? Great cast, awesome directors, great script, great vibes. The vibes are off the charts in that movie. But now let's bring it to games. So this is going to be, we've got kind of a 2-part segment here to kind of end the show. But first of all, we want to talk about other games from the time, not necessarily ones that wouldn't come up on the N64 library. It could be other consoles, whatever, that were either big. Mine actually all are from maybe like that year or like a couple years later. Like I was playing it in my pre-teen era, so like late 90s, early 2000s. But it could be a game you discovered like later and it became a favorite. So what stood out to you about 1996?
So I was just going through like a list of game releases because I wasn't super familiar with. There's one that I'll do last. I'll talk about last that I recall.
Okay.
But, so I've never actually played a Resident Evil game, but I like watching people play. I watched you play. You played the GameCube remake. So the original.
We watched some of
out,
the original, which is a lot of fun.
In '96, and I've watched a lot of playthroughs on YouTube of almost all of the games. I really like the horror genre, but I don't necessarily play a lot of horror games. I think I'd probably like some of these because most of them are not first person, which is generally the thing that turns me off from a game. I don't normally enjoy first person
Resident
games.
Evil is such a unique.
Yeah, there's a lot of different
angles.
styles. A style evolution. I think even they went to first person with 7, but then they released a third person version. Yeah. So yeah, that's
I'm a huge fan of that series, and we're gonna bring up a handful of almost like big tentpole games that came out of this year that are like, that one's genre defying. Some of the other ones are a little less genre defying, but I think of them as all like these. I guess they're all like PlayStation games, like that one I'll briefly mention, Crash Bandicoot. Just like these huge, I guess, non-Nintendo games. We're setting up the next era. Sega's been put in its place, but here comes Sony, and games like that I played at my cousin's. Sorry, continue with your list.
The next one I picked was Tomb Raider. Also not something I've actually... Well, I've played the newest reboot trilogy. That's the only Tomb Raider I played. But I really like the series. I've watched all the movies. Apparently there is a show coming to Amazon with like Haley Atwell attached to play Lara Croft, so that seems really neat.
That'd be cool. It's gonna be hard to top Angelina.
Apparently it's gonna have a tie-in movie and video game, so we have like more Tomb Raider to look forward to playing. I'd Tomb Raider, the earlier games, that's a series I'd be interested in playing too.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Well, when we do our
I like the
one
series.
thing I want to do is sometimes, like, I've talked about bonus episodes of like things from that era that aren't.
Mm-hmm.
So well, maybe we'll do a bonus episode on that someday. I've got it on the list as well as like Super Mario RPG. Well, actually, that came out that year too. So what? Yeah, we're gonna eventually maybe, dive into some non 64 stuff. But yeah.
So my final one is maybe my first video game. It's either my memory from the time is too foggy to determine what the actual first was, but it was either Mario Kart 64 or Pokemon. So I think I can say Pokemon was my first single player game. It did not launch in the US at that time. It was only in Japan in 1996. Red and Green launched February 27th, 1996, which is when we celebrate Pokemon Day every year. And then later in the year, well, it was not even Pokemon, it's Pocket Monsters.
Yes.
So later in the year, they launched Pocket Monster Blue, which was like sort of a slight upgrade to Red and Green.
Uh-huh.
And then a couple 98, I think, is when they released Pokemon Red and Blue in North America. And I think I read they took, well, Pokemon Blue, Pocket Monster Blue was like a solo game, so it didn't have like the version exclusive stuff. So when Pokemon Red and Blue released in North America, they took the like version exclusive stuff from Red and Green and the upgrades from Blue and put that into those. And then so those Red and Blue weren't the ones I played. I actually played Yellow, which was even
I had that.
I think that was still in 98, but that was like the game that launched my love of video games, so definitely had to include that on here.
For sure. Yeah, I didn't put it on because I knew you would, but also because that's not I don't know, I guess it's not gonna, we'll talk about it when we get to it, but I have specific stories and memories from it that I was planning on sharing eventually. Because if I remember, I'll try to have its American release dates come up. Because I'll
make sure I remember.
Okay. Well, usually when I'm looking up other games, like when I go off the N64 list for a show, I've got it, American release dates. But then when I'm doing the research, I'm like looking up other notable games, and sometimes it'll throw out like, Cruisin' USA, but I don't know if it's like it turns out it's like, oh, that's a Saturn port, or I don't know if that actually happened, but you know what I mean, or like released in Japan, and so hopefully I get it right. But yeah, that was a huge game for me at the time. Huge game. The ones I picked, actually, these were all games that I played a ton, and so I had sort of like the friends or the cousins who had PlayStations that I would get to experience, outside of what I owned between my NES, Game Boy, and N64. But then we also had, a personal computer at home, a PC, if you will. And these all came out this year. I don't know what years I actually played them, but they would have been big for me regardless as a kid. I played a lot of SimCopter, which was, as it sounds, it's actually one of the first, like, it was sort of like open world. Like, you're a helicopter pilot and you can get in and out of the helicopter. Really, like, I remember primitive graphics and voice acting, like... But one thing that I thought was so cool about it was I was big into SimCity 2000 on the PC. That's one of my all-time favorite games, even. But you could import your SimCity 2000 cities and play the game on that, like, fly around in those cities and do, like, they'd have different missions where you'd, like, stop crime, or you'd like have to put out fires, like you'd fill up a bucket and drop water on stuff. You pick people up and take them to the hospital. And it reminds me a little bit of like almost like GTA, just in that it's like this big city that you're kind of open to exploring. So I got really sucked into that as a kid.
Nice.
We had us had a lot of Command and Conquer Red Alert, which was a real-time strategy game. I played a lot of it when I was young. It didn't stick with me as much as the series I really got into was Age of Empires, but I have some fond memories of playing that one in particular. And then this was on consoles as well. One thing I also had to experience at like other people's houses were typically Sega games. I didn't ever have a Genesis or a Saturn or a Dreamcast or whatever, but they did do PC versions of, I had Sonic 3 and Knuckles on PC, but the 1996 game that I have on here is Sonic 3D Blast, which is kind of an interesting, it's like a isometric view Sonic game. And I remember like the art style and like the whole vibe. I haven't played it since then, but the vibe of it is off the charts. So I actually kind of want to go back and play that one again, because I don't remember how like actually good it was, but I have such fond memories of playing it even over Sonic 3. I think I liked it more as a kid. I think just because the visual style and the music and everything popped for me. So yeah, so those were pretty big games. But to wrap things up, we've got, did I say 8 games? How many games have we covered? We've covered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Does this go in?
Yeah, there we go. We've got 8 games we covered. You know, the eps, it's a little long yet, but we're catching up on things. So, but we have this one final segment we're gonna do. We're gonna kind of steal the Ryan of Standard Definition Gaming's rating system, and we're going to, I don't want the episode to get the episodes we do to get too bogged down in like reviewing the games. We're just kind of like talking about our experiences with them and stuff like that. But I thought it'd be fun here in this sort of wrap up to go through, and we're going to rate these games based on only 2 criteria, which is the vibes and fun factor, I believe was the other one. So we'll do it out of like 5, I would say. So we're going to go chronological order. McKenna, Pilot Wings 64. In terms of vibes, what would you, I think this
amazing vibes.
Amazing vibes.
This is gonna be a 5.
It's a 5?
A 5, yeah.
Okay. For me,
it was a good intro to
can I edit this?
Can you edit your own
am I screwed right now? Oh, here we go. Mode editing. Wow. Okay. So you're going 5.
Oh yeah.
For me, it the music, the visuals, everything really awesome. I feel like there's slightly higher standard that can be achieved. I'm going to be a little bit more less I'm gonna be more critical. I'm gonna give it a 4.
Okay.
But for fun factor, where would you rank this?
You know, I think the ones I've had the most fun playing are the vehicle some
the jetpack.
Some of the most fun. Yeah, I'm gonna give this one a
copter.
5 as well.
5. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this is one of my favorites that we've played so far.
I'm gonna say a 3. I think it's pretty good. I think it's good. We didn't go and like fully go completion on this. I think it's because like when I got to the really hard ones, they were fun, and I could see myself going back and doing it. I might, but as time has gone on, I'm sort of like, yeah, that was really fun. But I think, you know, I don't feel compelled to like do more. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I think I'm less critical, maybe of this because it's an early game in the system, and it's probably some of the other ones that we've played I have not enjoyed as much.
That's fair. No, I can totally see that. This one, that's one thing to it is like it's kind of low commitment, you know. Like if you're like failing on something, they're like 30 seconds long.
Yeah.
So you're like, whatever, you know.
Right.
Super Mario 64 though, this I would actually list as the best game of 1996.
It got game of the year from a lot of
yeah,
basically anywhere.
Vibes.
Though
What do you
is
think?
definitely a 5.
Okay, this one I'm gonna agree. There's something about this era, like the Mario series has yet to, because 3D gaming is new. Like the like vibe of Mario has yet to fully be solidified. Like obviously there's games now that they're still spectacular. They're probably all 5s, but there's something about this era where like there's just certain like elements I feel like you wouldn't see in a Mario game now. And I just think like when I'm hit with that title menu, this game select, like it just sends like a blast to me of uncontrollable vibes. What about fun factor?
So I mostly had a lot of fun with this, but
You
I
struggled a little bit.
was struggling a little bit with like the camera controls and
Mm-hmm.
depth perception. So I got a little frustrated at times, but I'm still gonna give it a 4.
Okay, so Pilot Wings is more fun.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, that's cool.
I think I enjoyed watching you play Super Mario 64
And let me tell
more
you,
than I enjoyed playing it.
I have such muscle. I've said this before. I have like some of those jumps. Like I can see where it's like you're like you gotta get the camera right or whatever. Whereas like I have such muscle memory that just I'm like blast off at this jump. Who cares? I'll probably land. I'm giving it a 5 because I just like the muscle memory. It's always feels so satisfying to go back and play. There's definitely things I struggled with at times that were frustrating, but just I don't know. Yeah, we don't have to go back into everything, but I think it's such a great total package of a game. How about Wave Race 64? I'm gonna just right off the back say vibes are 5. I think
I agree with that.
this game
It's
defines
such good
vibes. Like there's so much effort even putting into the different levels and making them distinct and like
Yeah.
such a specific vibe. And for fun factor, I would probably even say for me 4. Like the gameplay is so satisfying. Like I love how it feels, like the way you're bouncing on the waves and like I don't know. For me, it really clicks. Like lining up the different things. It gets a little tough, which is fine. Being difficult isn't necessarily bad. But then there's certain things like I didn't get really too into like the trick mode, which is okay, but and you know multiplayer is okay, but I don't know. I wish there could be a little bit more there. But playing just doing a race, doing a circuit is awesome. So 4 for me.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with everything you said there. So
Okay.
I think 4 also. I love the racing. I did a lot of the tricks on the tutorial level, and I think we tried to do. There's like sort of trick races where you're racing through these rings and you have a time limit. You're supposed to score a certain number of points with the tricks.
Yeah.
But like I had fun doing the tricks. I just don't like how
actual
they
mode,
incorporate.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't like the mode that they did. I'd rather just go back to the tutorial level and do some more tricks.
For sure. Mortal Kombat Trilogy. This one I love, like the Mortal Kombat mythology and all that sort of stuff. What little I kind of know about it, I feel like the way it comes off in like this specific version of the game isn't as good as like when we were playing in the arcade. So for vibes, I'm gonna just give it a 3 because I think Mortal Kombat is awesome, but you know, this specific version that people say is really good, I feel like when you play it on actual arcade, even the older ones, like the vibes are way better. What about you? This is a trickier one.
Yeah. I don't know. I think the greatest appeal of the game was watching the fatalities, which in my gameplay never. I guess they happened. Did they happen to me?
Oh yeah,
they happened to me, but I was really struggling with this one. So
yeah, this is hard.
I don't know. Well, we can give it a 3 as well.
Okay. For fun factor, yeah, this is a tough one because it's just like I'm just not good at it.
It's not my genre.
And I feel like it's a little like tougher to like get back up when you've been knocked down.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I still had a fair amount of fun with it, but this is going to sound harsh, but I'd probably say 2 just from my experience. Like I thought it was all right. It sound like if you listen to the app, it probably sounds like I like it more. But just comparing it to the other ones, like
I definitely like researching it more than I liked.
Yeah,
I was gonna say 2, but I feel like I liked it less than you.
Well, 1 is I feel like is like
that is really
bad.
Harsh.
Yeah, no, 2's all right. I think,
all right.
I almost went 3 on that one, to be fair.
Okay, yours is like a high 2.
Mm-hmm. Wayne Gretzky 3D Hockey. I thought this vibes-wise was a very charming game, but definitely not as much as like say Wave Race or even Pilot Wings. But for and like the the music's pretty decent, but even compared to those other games, like it doesn't hit those same highs. So I'd say from vibes, I give it about a 3. Pretty. It was okay. It was pretty good.
Okay.
3 is like good.
I'm gonna go. I think those are our scales. Like don't quite match up because like I think 3 for you is good, or 3 for me is just like
average. Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. Okay, that's fine.
So I'm gonna give it a 4. I think you can tell on our scales because like I gave some of the earlier games like higher scores.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not. I think it matches up here. Like my first 3 or 5s where I'm like, yeah, these are awesome vibes. My Mortal Kombat is a 3 where I'm like, this is in the middle.
For sure. Okay. For fun factor though, I had a friggin' blast playing this game.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I'm gonna give it a 5. This is definitely very biased, or like I know it's kind of limited of a game, but I just think like the average game of this is so fun, and I don't even like hockey that much. And it's of this early games we're talking about, like, I definitely would say it's equally as fun as Super Mario 64, for example, but just for what its type of experience is, for me, it's like top notch. Mm-hmm. And you have 4-player, so awesome.
Yeah, I'm also gonna go 5 on this.
Yes,
I thought this was really fun, especially because
the arcade was fun.
Yeah,
too.
The arcade was a lot of fun. When you're playing 2-player, you can play against each other, or you can play cooperatively, and that's what we were doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was a lot of fun.
Okay.
I don't know. I like the. I'm not like a very competitive person. Like I'm mostly competitive against myself. Like I like to do better than I did before, but I'm not competitive against other people. So I liked doing the co-op a lot.
Yeah, we'll probably play more of that too in the future because it was fun, and you can beat more teams. You know what I mean, and get your record up. So, Killer Instinct Gold. I'm gonna be controversial here because I actually think I give Mortal Kombat Trilogy a 3. I'm gonna give this a 4, even though we talked about kind of a lot of it is like they're influenced by it in a lot of ways, but I think it's more due to if you're comparing maybe the arcade versions, it would be a different story, but like just this specific version of the game, it actually got worse reviews, I think at the time, for not being as good of a port, but I actually think it works better as an N64 game than Mortal Kombat Trilogy does, if that makes sense. Just like the visuals, like the kind of mix, I think the way it mixes 2D and 3D is cool. I think the soundtrack is way better in my opinion. And I don't know, yeah, I just think it like something about it really grabbed me. Maybe it's because also I had more fun playing it too, but I think the soundtrack and the visuals, even as dumbed down as they were comparatively to the arcade, like, I thought it was fun. Or I thought it visually stood out to me. The vibes were there.
Yeah, I think I agree on the vibes. I think we're going to disagree on the fun factor. But I think I could go for a 4 with the vibes. I got felt more attached to the characters in here, I think, than Mortal Kombat, which kind of helped with the vibes. We had our main
Spinal.
what's his name? Spinal, yes. And I agree with the like 2D, 3D thing. It was cool to have the 2D fighters, but them still having a 3D environment where the camera would rotate. I thought that was really neat, and it felt, I don't know, a little more colorful.
Yeah, a little more colorful.
Yeah, I love Spinal's stage with his ship, and all the
guys
all
rowing.
the skeletons rowing, and the xylophone.
The xylophone.
God, that's so.
Yeah,
good.
true.
I think that stage
music
alone, like, is what really pulls it to a 4 vibe for me.
Okay, how about the fun factor? I'm gonna say I had more fun with this than Mortal Kombat because of, like, just the basic idea. Like, both of them, I think I equally got my ass kicked in, but just that it was so much easier. When I get knocked down, I get back up again. You're never going to keep me down. And we could, like, in this, we actually beat it. And I kind of picked up some things a little bit better. And it has a training mode. Mm-hmm. So you at least have a chance to learn some moves.
Not if you're me.
I didn't get advanced, but, we were beating it. So for me, I'd go a little bit higher. I'd say a 3. I feel like 4 would be too high, but I don't know. I actually had a lot of fun playing this one, so it does. I don't know. What about you?
I'm gonna keep it at a 2.
Okay.
The
fighting just isn't
not my thing. I think like Smash is as far as I go into the fighting game genre. It's yeah.
Okay.
I would not play this on my own.
Okay, Cruisin' USA. I would say I have such nostalgia for it, but yeah, playing it, I was like, this game, it's actually a little busted. Mm-hmm. And if I was being honest, I'll probably say a 2 for the vibe. Because I think, especially when we're playing, like, it really takes you out of it when we're playing. It's kind of charming, but when it just totally is breaking when you're playing multiplayer, the frame rate is just non-existent. And then the music, there's that one song I really like, but then when you listen to it compared to the arcade one, it's like, oh man, it's so much worse. So yeah, I don't know.
Well, this is, of the games we've played so far, this is the type I'm really enjoying more, like the vehicle simulation kinds of things and adventure kinds of things.
But what about the vibe?
Yeah, I like the concept, the road trip,
cruising,
and just seeing like the sights.
That is cool. Yeah.
So I'm gonna give it a 3.
Okay.
Not too high.
I could see myself going that. Yeah. From a fun perspective, I would probably. It is kind of fun. It is kind of fun. Maybe I'll give it a 3. For me, I think it's like, yeah, it's all right. It's fun. There are going to be better racing games for sure. And I think maybe even compared to them, it's probably lower. But what was your fun factor?
I think 4 would be too high.
Wow.
Probably based on the ratings I've given the other ones, I think 4 is probably too. I was thinking about a 4, and then I was like, well, I gave Mario and Wave Race. I'm like, it's definitely lower.
You haven't given a 3
than Wave Race, so yeah, we can go 3.
Okay, that's pretty. Okay, now our final one, Shadows of the Empire. From a vibe perspective, I'm kind of torn. I feel like I like Star Wars a fair amount, and I think it's cool, especially the multimedia thing actually kind of adds to the vibe of it a little bit. Like,
Yeah, I'm trying to decide if that's like, should I consider that in the vibes? Because if I consider that, it's definitely higher than the game. The game on its own, I'm kind of like, it's all right.
I feel like yeah, I feel like it doesn't always fully like. It's not the most like, the Star Wars stuff is there, for sure, obviously, but like
Some of the music was like really repetitive.
yeah,
I remember Nico coming out and being like, "I thought you guys were like listening to the
same scene or
short
something."
clip over and over again." No, that's just the track.
I think I'd give the vibe another 3 personally. It was
Yeah. Yeah, I think 3 is right. I think, if you thinking about the multimedia aspect, the graphic novel and the comic series is what makes it cool to me.
Okay, so
So
3 is fair to say.
yeah.
What about though from a fun? What would you say? How much fun did you have playing?
So we kind of split it so that I was playing most of the. I've been saying I like the vehicle simulation games we've been playing, so I was doing a lot of the vehicle stuff, which I
seemed
thought
fun.
was pretty fun.
Yeah.
I did play a little bit of the walking around stuff, and that was definitely less fun to me. So, I feel like I could go higher on the vehicle part and lower on the walking around part. So I think maybe if I average that could also be a 3.
Okay, a 3. That's good. You know what? I ended up, especially by the end when they almost get, it's not really, but it almost had Zelda dungeon type vibes where it's like, oh, you need the key card and you have to go around and kind of explore. And I got more used to the controls. Actually had kind of a lot of fun playing this game, even with how certain things, you feel like, oh, it hasn't been fully formed, like in a way. But I had a lot of fun playing this, especially compared to some of the other ones I gave like 3s. So I would actually give it a 4 because I ended up having a lot of fun running around, exploring, using the jetpack. And it does do a good job, even though I was like the vibes, it's not the best of like Star Wars vibed things. Like it did give off the like thing of like you're going around doing different things they do in Star Wars, So yeah, I would go 4 with that. So if we're looking, I kind of just quickly mocked up I combined our scores. I'm like, what are our? It looks like we're kind of. And would we agree with this? Mario 64 is the best game we played. It's got to be. It's the flagship game.
Yeah.
And then our scores combined, I don't know if you'd agree, but like we had Wave Race just behind, factoring in both of us.
Yeah.
Just behind. And then the pulling up behind it is Pilot Wings and Wayne Gretzky, which I think that does fairly represent our.
I definitely say those are my favorite games we played.
Yeah, so pretty early on, and then it's kind of mixed later. Mortal Kombat is our lowest combined score, and Cruisin', which I think is fairly accurate, especially with how much that's like Cruisin'. We cruised the USA, and it was kind of like we're sort of done with it. Killer Instinct and Shadows we have more in the mid-range, but I think we had our fun with them while we played them, so I think they're pretty worthwhile. But yeah, Mario 64 and Wave Race I think are definitely the standout Nintendo 64 games of 1996, with our quick and dirty ranking we did there. So yeah, it's been fun. I'm excited to see what 1997 has in store for us.
Yeah.
Okay? Yeah. So yeah, our next episode coming out is gonna be about NBA Hang Time and Mario Kart 64. As we've said, we've been prepping for that. It's been a blast. There's all kinds of fun and struggles and all kinds of things we're gonna be talking about in our next episode. And I'm excited because I'm having a great time. the monthly thing has been working out really well. It gives us time to really kind of sit with some of the games and, not rush through any of them or anything. So, and to do other things in our lives, and to like do a lot of watching the movies and researching. Like, we're kind of like half in on, so, we get to pop in and like watch a movie or listen to an album, and it's been a great experience. And we've gotten, a lot of people come to us talking to us about this, and people just like finding out and wanting to be on the show and stuff like that. And it's been cool, like just getting some of this positive support.
Yeah, the response has been great.
Yeah. Please feel free to write more comments. We're gonna try to keep up with them as we go. And if you want to write in and like ask us questions and stuff like that, we'll try to address that and stuff too. I'll plug some of our stuff, and you can find out how you can get a hold of us. But so our art is done by Corey Richmond and the music by Nico Sylvian. Thanks to both of them for helping craft the vibe of our show. It's very key, I think, actually. It's created a fun vibe. I love looking at our little logo and hearing our little music. Like I said, you can rate and review us on your podcast platform of choice. YouTube, like I said, you can go leave a comment there. We'll try to respond to it sooner than later. And give us a like, subscribe, all that. The YouTube, it's more of a like, it's also on YouTube, but we'll be taking a look at stuff on there. Because, I know for some people that's a convenient way to listen to a podcast. So
plus we got our playlists on there.
Yeah,
our
we do have
playlists.
I think I accidentally made one on my YouTube for this game, the next game. But I'm trying to do them on Flashback and make them public. So if you want to go over to our YouTube and check our playlists that we've made, you get a nice mix of like 90s music from that time of the show or of the game we're talking about on the shows. You can follow us on Twitter or whatever, X.
Yeah, Twitter.
At Flashback64pod. And go, I gotta write it down in here. We'll see if this sticks around. But we are on Blue Sky, which I've been having a lot of fun with. We've actually gotten, some more listeners from there, which is exciting. And we're getting a lot of nice people talking to us and sharing their thoughts with us. I think we're Flashback64 on there, so flashback64.bsky.social, I think is how they work over there. But and for our friends who aren't on there who want to be on there, if we get some invite codes, we'll send them. But yeah, it's been cool over there. You can email us stuff too at flashback64pod@gmail.com. And like I said, join our Discord, because we're going to have game nights and stuff like that. At least once a month, it's looking like we're going to try to. The first one was such a hit, like we said. We had two, because you can play 4-player on NSO of Mario Kart. And so we had 6 people. So we had 2 3-on-3, verses for Mario Kart. We're doing verses and battle and stuff, and if we get more, we can split up even more. So it's almost like a LAN party, but not LAN, where we're all playing our games together. And so, like I said, we'll be doing that with other N64 games and whatever else. I don't know. We'll see what else comes up. So, thanks everyone for listening to the show, and we'll see you in 1997.
Yeah, see ya.
Bye-bye.